I do think that the US desire to be stronger in chips and the global supply chain shortage has made Japan feel a little bit left out, and also a desire, I think, within Japan to regain its lost glory. 20 or 30 years ago, it was a major player in semiconductors, and it's really fallen off. And so I think the government now recognizes that it's still got a chance. It wants to get back in the game. And that's why they're working to do so, to spend money and to lure companies like TSMC to set up shop in Japan.
At the moment, TSMC is also building a plant in Arizona, and there's talk of another one going up in Germany as well. So, is this just the start of a wave of overseas expansion for TSMC?
I think we'll see 5 years from now more overseas fabs for TSMC than we do now or versus 5 years ago. We shouldn't forget the fact that TSMC is still expanding in Taiwan. And I think what we'll see 5 years from now is TSMC will have a broader presence overseas naturally because they're starting from a very, very low base. And so it can only grow from there. But I think we'll still see more than 90% of TSMC's capacity and all of its leading edge, the best possible capacity being in Taiwan.
It's fairly clear to see how Japan and other countries stand to benefit from these deals, with TSMC sharing their expertise with them. But what is in it for TSMC itself and for Taiwan more broadly?
Well, in terms of Japan, Japan is an important partner with Taiwan in the electronics and semiconductor chain. People forget that they are still to this day a leading player in the equipments and materials. There's very important companies in Japan. Tokyo Electron is probably the most famous, but Japanese companies make a lot of the materials, the chemicals that go into semiconductors. So by setting up in Japan, TSMC can be much closer to that supply chain, can work very, very closely with its suppliers. There is a lot of reasons why TSMC could benefit from having a close relationship with Japanese companies and the government, and wants to build even closer relationship over the coming decade.
Is there any threat of Taiwan losing its competitive edge in this industry as TSMC expands overseas and shares its expertise in other places?
What TSMC can do is benefit from having factories in other parts of the world. In Arizona, for example, that's where they've decided to set up in Arizona. There's 50 states of the US, they chose Arizona. It's no coincidence that Arizona is also a leading destination or a leading place for Intel. So they've set up shop right down the road from one of their major competitors. There's probably quite a few engineers from Intel that they might want to pick off. And the same could happen in Japan. There's engineers in Japan that they could pick up along the way. And if they were to move to Europe, they could probably benefit from some of the talent within Europe. That is something that I think is a reason why TSMC would go overseas. Yeah, in theory, by setting up shop overseas, including in China, they could lose a little bit of their talent overseas. But I think the reverse is also true. They could pick up talent wherever they go.